Boker Tov. Today's Daf Yomi is Zevachim Ayin past Zevachim 79. Today's Daf Yomi will start actually on the top line of 79a. The Gemara had said in yesterday's Daf that Rabbi Yehuda says Rowan. What does that mean? That means to say in this situation where there are two substances connected to each other, min bimino, and we're not able to tell exactly whether or not what the prohibited substance is nullified by the permitted substance, either because it's the same appearance or it's because of the same taste. Then Rabbi Yehuda says, Rowan, that we can look at the prohibited substance as if it were a different substance, and would it be prohibited under those circumstances? There's another way to evaluate, and that's called rove, that would just nullify it. It would need a majority in order to nullify it. So there's a brisa or a mishnah, depending on different opinions, exactly, that seems to suggest that the same author of Rowan also says rove, and that seems to contradict earlier statement of the Gemara. So their Gemara's answer is no. Hadi de hadi Rabbi. That one is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, one is the opinion of his teacher. That means to say, Rashi says the earlier statement that we say Rowan, that is actually the teacher. That is actually his teacher's opinion. So, and whereas Rabbi Yehuda himself says Rove, but his teacher says Rowan. And who is the teacher who says Rowan? That's Rabbi Gamliel on top line of 79a. Good morning, Rachel Lizo. It's a pleasure to see you back in the daf. So we stay on the top of 79a. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Mishum Rabbi Gamliel, Ein Dam Mevatel Tam, meaning to say that blood does not nullify other blood, and Ein Rok Mevatel Rok, and the spit does not nullify the other spit. Mei Reglayim Mevatel Mei Reglayim, and the urine does not nullify the other urine. And even though it's the majority, we're not going to follow the majority. We need to evaluate it. And so therefore we say Rowan under these circumstances. We have to see whether or not, if it would be a different substance, would it make an impact. So Rava gives a different answer about the contradiction in the brisa that we said earlier, or Mishnah, depending upon the different approach amongst Rishonim, because the Gira says a little bit different than the text of Mikvos. And that is that one source had said by Rowan, or case of urine in the mikvah, we say Rowan. But in the case of the mechatas, in the case of the water that was mixed with the ashes of the red heifer, there we say we need Rove. So Rava says really it's one Tana, and he passes like his Rebbe, who says Rowan. But in the case of the paraduma, the ashes of the red heifer, he's not going to say Rowan. Why not? Rav Amar Bedui Shetocho Tahor V'Gavo Tamei Askinon. We're talking about a bucket where the inside is tahor and the outside is tamei. I mean to say the back of the utensil became tamei, and that's only going to be rabbinic tumah, because we say that in the case where the outside becomes tamei, the inside and the handles are tahor. The Medina Sagi we called it. And biblically speaking, as long as a little bit of water, technically speaking, as long as a little bit of water comes over the top, that's going to be sufficient. Because really we just need to make sure the lip of the utensil is immersed in the mikvah, and the inside doesn't really need to be immersed. The Rabbanan the Gazru, but the rabbis made a decree that you have to immerse it very well, because the rabbis made a decree that you have to immerse it very well, because we're concerned if you don't immerse the whole thing, then maybe you're not even going to immerse the lip. And so look at Rashi. The rabbis made a decree that you should immerse it very, very well. Because if you say it's sufficient just to immerse the outside, maybe they'll be so concerned about the water of the ashes of the red heifer, which is very expensive, very rare. He wants to make sure that the water of the mikvah doesn't get into it. When it'll disqualify it, and then maybe it won't even immerse the lipa utensil. Therefore, the rabbis made a decree that you have to immerse the whole thing and to disqualify the waters of the red heifer or poslo. And the kivan the ika rebuya, since there's a majority, sulo tzarach datulos toho, sulo tzarach. Once you there's a majority, then under those circumstances you don't need anything else because the tefillah of the inside is going to be just a chumrah, is just a stringency. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. So therefore, since it's just a rabbinic stringency, therefore we're not going to need Rowan in that case. And therefore, and that's sufficient. It's sufficient with a majority. But normally speaking, we would say Rowan. But in this case, the author of this brisa, Rabbi Yehuda, is not going to be strict like his teachers because it's just the stringency of this particular case that we require the whole thing to be immersed. But really, we don't even need that. So Amar Rava. So now we have a general statement about nullification and taruvos mixtures and broader implications for kashrus. Amar Rava, Amar Rabbanan b'taima, Amar Rabbanan b'taima, Amar Rabbanan b'ruba, Amar Rabbanan b'chazusa. The rabbi said this concept of nullification of bittul, both by taste, that you can have one taste that nullifies a different taste, and they said it by a majority. That you could have a majority that nullifies another minority of a food or an item that's prohibited. But Amar Rabbanan b'chazusa, and the rabbi said it by appearance. If it's min b'shein amino, if it's two different tastes, then b'taima, then they can be nullified as long as the taste of the prohibited item is not noticeable in the permitted item. Min b'mino, if it's the same exact substance, and so therefore you can't tell the tastes apart, then beruba, then you need to have a majority of the permitted substance to nullify the prohibited substance. And heichad iko chazusa b'mara, let's say heichad iko chazusa, and whereas the matter is not dependent upon the taste, but it's dependent upon the appearance. So, like for example, the mikvah, that it needs to look like the mikvah. It needs to look like water and not like something else. So then the rabbis say, well, if it's noticeable, it's not nullified. And now we go back to an earlier statement that Reish Lakish said, where he said, we learned from the statement on 78a that Isurim are mevatlin zetzeh, that prohibited items can nullify each other. From the case where a person was chewing pigul and nosar, or pigul, nosar, tamei, two of them in his mouth. And he said you don't get lashes because the Isurim are mevatlin zetzeh. The prohibited items nullify each other. But this statement argues with Rabbi Elazar. The Amar Rabbi Elazar, kashem shein mitzvos mevatlin zuatzu, kach ein Isurim mevatlin zuatzu. He says, Rabbi Elazar says, just like mitzvos don't nullify each other, and we're about to see an example of what that means. The taste of the lesser taste is not nullified by the majority taste, just like mitzvos don't nullify each other. Also, prohibited items do not know each other. Man shamaslei the amar ein mitzvos mevatel tutsu. Who's the one who says that mitzvos do not nullify each other? That is going to be the position of Hillel. He would take the Pesach matzah and mar together in the time of the temple, and he would wrap them all together, and then he would eat them together. Mishum shenemar al matzah u'marim yochlu. The matzah and mar can be eaten together. So we don't say that the taste of the maror nullifies the taste of the matzah. So there's a lot to talk about here. First of all, Why is Hillel taking the Pesach and the Matzah and the Maror and putting them together? So some of the rabbis say, excuse me, that the Maror represents redemption, and the Maror represents affliction or bitterness, and the Matzah represents redemption. So what we're doing is, excuse me, Hillel is saying that we accept both the bitterness and the redemption with love, or as some formulate it, that the bitterness is part of the redemption. What's the reason why the mitzvahs are not nullifying each other? Because the Rashbam explains in Pesachim, because since they're both shavim, they both have the fulfillment of a mitzvah, therefore they're not going to nullify each other. Hold on one second. It's a little bit interesting to me that we say that this proves that they don't nullify each other. But anyway, the Maror wouldn't be nullified because the taste of the Maror is noticeable. So that's why the Grizz says that it's talking about majority and not about taste. So, and that's what a lot of the commentaries say. We're not talking about the nullification of the taste because you taste the Maror. We're talking about the nullification of through majority. Okay, so anyway, the basic point of Rabbi Elazar is that just like mitzvahs are not mevatel each other, also isurin are prohibited items are not mevatel each other, and also that is also why would we think that the two are connected? But okay, so this is his fundamental idea. Anyway, we go on now to talk about charasan, which is a urinal. Tanu Rabbanan, that we learned in the Mishnah that when we learned in the Mishnah earlier that when the blood of the carbon is mixed with the blood of the chulin, Rabbi Yehuda says that the blood is not nullified at all because he's on the position min b'mino, the same item is not nullified. The Gemara brings a brayso that agrees with Rabbi that statement min b'mino l'batal, and then asks the question. Because we learned in the brayso charasan, which is like a chamber pot, a pot for urinating in. Shel zav v'zava, so it's the pot of the zav or the zava, and so therefore we're going to say that their urine of the zav or zava is considered a primary source of tumah, and now the pot breaks, and so you have shards of pottery, and you want to know how you could purify it. So pam rishon v'sheni. So if you wash them out once or twice with water, then we're going to say it remains tamei. But shlishi, if you wash it out a third time with water, then it becomes tahor. If you wash it out with water, and then we're going to say that it's nullified by the water. But if you didn't wash it out with water, you just wash it out with urine, afilu asiri tamei. Even if you wash it out 10 times, it's going to become tamei. Because we're going to say min b'mino lo batal. Even 10 times is not batal. Whereas Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer Shlishi Afal Pi Shelo Nasan Sochel Mayim Tahor, that if you wash it out with 3 times, even with the urine, then it's going to be tahor. Because Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov is in the position that min b'mino is batal. And continues the Gemara. Man shamas amar min b'mino lo batal. Who's the one who says it's not nullified? That's Rabbi Yehuda's position in our Mishnah, who says that the dam is not nullified. But didn't we learn in a brayso pishtan shetavas nida, and the way they would make flax, she would moisten it with her saliva and put it on the spinner, and that was if she was a nida, that makes the spit of the nida then is tamei. Well, it's wet, but if it's dry, it's not. So misito tahor. So if she moistened the she took her spit and she moistened the flax and then she put on the spinner. Once it's dry, if they moved it, then we're going to say it's tahor because it's only a problem when it's wet. But if the flax was moist, mesito tamei mishum mashkepia. If it's moist, it's going to be tamei because of the moisture from her mouth, the spit from her mouth. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says, "Af arot v'b'mayim tamei mishum mashkepia." Rabbi Yehuda says, even after the flax dries out, we're going to say if she moistens it, tamei mishum mashkepia. If somebody else comes and moistens it, it's going to be a problem because of the moisture of her mouth. Well, anyway, we see from this position of Rabbi Yehuda that it doesn't matter how many times that it was moistened with water. Va'afilu tuva, even if you did it many times, it's going to become tamei. So how could Rabbi Yehuda say in the Brisa earlier that if the urine is absorbed, then 3 times you could wash it out with water? Whereas here we're saying no matter how many times, it's not nullified. The Rami Sada, the Tzib says that basically the question here is the first brisa says that the water and the reglayim are not mimbamino, whereas the second brisa says that the spit and the water are considered mimbamino. So we're going and meaning say since the spit is considered like a derivative of water, and so therefore we see from here that also urine should be considered mimbamino. So Amar Papash, no, Shani Rok, the reason why the spit is different and it doesn't go out of the flax is the cover because it's adhesive, it really becomes attached. Okay, the next case in the Gemara, we learned in the Mishnah said, Nis'arev b'dam psul and yishafech ha'amal. Mishnah said that if the blood of the korban got mixed in with the blood of a disqualified animal, you have to pour it into the river. And also if it got mixed up with damatamsis, the Tanna Kama says that it's disqualified to throw on the altar, even if the kosher bought it the majority. Whereas Rabbi Lezer says, in that case, go back to the Mishnah on Nisar v'dam spilling yishafik lama. V'damatamsis, if it got mixed up with the damatamsis, it's also spilled. Whereas Rabbi Lezer Malshir. Rabbi Lezer says, no, if it got mixed up with damatamsis, it's kosher. But my comment for me, what's the dispute? Amar Zvid begozrim gzera mikdash kamifukei. The Chachamim are there's a dispute whether or not the Chachamim will make a gezerah about the temple. If Rashi says if you make a border by kachim to distance you, and we're not concerned to make kachim lose money, because if you make a siyag and you disqualify it, are you going to make the kachim lose money? The Maris Stavar goes and the Tanna Kama says it's disqualified. Says the Chachamim should make a gezerah to distance you, and therefore even in the temple, and so therefore they said that you're not to sprinkle on the mizbeach, where the blood of the korban can mix up with dam psulim or dam tamsis, even though it's not nullified. The kosher blood is not nullified, so that you're not going to come to make kosher by mistake. Also, when the blood of the korban is completely nullified, because then it's biblically prohibited. That's how Rashi says. The Maris Savar goes in. Look at Rashi. Yokach Nazar Dam Kasher Bedam Pasal or Bedam Tamtis. It's Alpha Pishin the possible Betamtis Kedei Levati as a kosher. Even though the blood is still kosher because it's not nullified, Yishafech ha'ama. We have to pour in the ama. Zera, we're concerned. Also in case where there's enough to nullify it. Why are we not making this decree? Also got mixed up with the blood of the animal or a chaya. Because that's not common. Now I have chulin in the courtyard. But disqualified animals are common. The rabba or nefesh. Also, it's common to have damatamsis. Whereas Reb Papa, Umar several Reb Elazar says we don't make it such a decree. The Chachamim were worried. They didn't want to make the kachim lose money because of their decrees. Therefore, until there would be from the disqualified animal enough that if it would be more water, the blood would not be recognizable, then we're going to allow you to sprinkle it. Papa Amar the Kuli Alma goes. Papa says no. Really, the rabbis also say make a decree in the temple. We just want to know what's likely. Is the damatamsis, if it's common or if it's practical that the damatamsis will be the majority. The Tanakh says it's common, and therefore we don't make a decree if it's mixed in with damatamsis. We make a decree that you can't throw it on the altar. Rabbi Elazar says it's not common, and so therefore you don't make a zera. Bishlam Rav Papa makes sense according to Rav Papa, who says that the question is whether or not the dam tamsis is common. I know the tiktani. That's why our Mishnah says. That's why it says in the Mishnah. I'm going to quote the exact language going back to our Mishnah. And that's why it states. That's why it says lists both separately. And it doesn't put in one phrase because according to Rav Papa, Rabbi Eliezer admits by the first law that the dam apostle we would not throw on that we would not throw at all. He just argues by dam and tamsis. And so therefore the Talmud taught it separately, so we wouldn't think it's the same law. Now Razvid, according to Razvid, who says it's the same law, our Vinavus we shouldn't put them together and teach them. Kasha. The Gemara says indeed that's difficult. Okay, now we're up to the Mishnah on the bottom of Ayin Tesam Beis, even though we're just going to start the Mishnah. It's a whole sugya. Hold on. Hold on a second. So what does it say? It says in the Mishnah, Dam Tamimim, the Dam Bal and Mumim. Let's say you have the Dam of a carbon that's Tamim, and it got mixed up with the blood of an animal that's a blemish. Yishafech Amma. You have to pour it in the Amma, in the river, because we're concerned under those circumstances that you're going to sprinkle it, even when in the case where the blood of the Bal Mumin is the majority. Kos bekosos, let's say two different cups were mixed up. Rabbi Eliezer says, Imkar of kos echad, yikravu kol kosos. Rabbi Eliezer says if one cup was brought, then all the other cups can also be sprinkled on the altar, because we assume that the prohibited one was sprinkled. The moment, I feel karvu kuan, chutz me'achaman. The Chum say even if one of them was I feel karvu kuan, even if all of them were brought, with the exception of one of them, meaning to say that the Chum take the opposite approach of Rabbi Eliezer. So our Mishnah says, let's say you have the blood of the chatas, which is supposed to be sprinkled above, and it got mixed up with the blood of the olah, which is supposed to be applied below. So on Nitan Lamata, so let's say the blood of the Ola or the Asham, Shenitzarvu b'Nisan Lamala, they got mixed up with the blood that's supposed to be a Bavai the Chatas. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Rabbi Eliezer says, Yitain Lamala. Rabbi Eliezer says you should put them all above for the purpose of the Chatas. And you say, V'ro Anias Tachtonom Milamala, Kilei Mayim. And you say, I have no intent with the blood that's in there that's from the Ola, I just view it as though it's water. And then Vialsa retain lamata, and they take the rest of the blood and you apply it below. And that will be A for the Ola, and also for the Shvicha Shirayim, the pouring of the Shirayim of the Chatos on the Yesod. Chacham is saying, no, you can't do anything on there. You can't say that concept of Rowan as Tamatachto Kiloimai. Chacham says it's no good. But if you didn't ask and just did it kosher, then it will be kosher. And that brings us to the bottom of our daf. So we'll stop here. God willing, pick this up at 8 o'clock.